Horror franchises have a reputation for becoming stale and falling into diminishing returns after the first few. Even as a massive horror fan and is one of my favorite genres, I have to admit that is generally true, with a few exceptions like Scream and the topic of this video, Final Destination. Granted, when the fourth movie, simply titled The Final Destination, came out in 2009, it appeared like this franchise was headed in that direction as well. Fast forward 2 years to 2011, and Final Destination 5 brings the franchise back with a bang. Spoiler alert, Bloodlines is pretty good as well. So what makes these movies so consistent and entertaining 6 entries in? What keeps us coming back to them? Let's dive in, spoilers for every movie in this franchise. Let's start with the concept. Final Destination is pretty unique in that it's essentially a slasher franchise, but without an actual physical killer chasing and stalking people from movie to movie. The killer is, in fact, death itself. It is not a person, it is a force of nature, and it goes after anyone who survives an event that they weren't supposed to, usually some big catastrophe that someone had a premonition about, so as to balance the scales. Each movie has an inciting incident like that: the plane, the log truck accident, the roller coaster, the racetrack, the bridge, and finally, the Tower restaurant. It may take longer to get to some than others, but eventually, one way or another, death is coming for them. If I'm being completely honest, I'm shocked it took someone until 2000 to come up with this idea. It's not exactly a complicated one, but it was quite refreshing at the time. What makes these movies so fun and intense is not if these people will die, but how and when they will die. Which brings me to my next point, the kills. The Final Destination franchise is famous for the wild, gory, anxiety-inducing kill sequences. I know many people who refuse to watch these movies because these sequences make them too anxious, and I completely understand that. It's not for everyone. Each of these sequences have so many fake outs and different possible ways that someone could potentially die, showing us so many potentially lethal objects in the room and having one crazy, seemingly random, horrible thing after another occur. My personal favorite is the gymnastics sequence in the 5th movie. My heart was pounding just waiting to see when and how, or even if, in this particular sequence, Candace will die. The barbecue sequence in Bloodlines with the broken glass, the one from the trailer, rivals the gymnastics one, especially because we didn't even know how the bloodline thing worked yet and who was in line to die next. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the shower kill, the one that started it all. The tanning bed in 3 is brutal as well, though a little more straightforward without as many fake outs, still incredibly effective. As someone looking to maybe get LASIK eye surgery soon, that one freaked me the hell out. The weightlifting head crush was insane. Getting sucked into the pool was crazy. I could go on and on and on. What's an iconic horror franchise without iconic kills? Final Destination has that in spades, each one different from the last. The franchise does such a great job both preying on fears that we already have and unlocking new potential fears that we may have never thought about before. Despite every movie in the franchise having all of the Final Destination isms that we love, each movie is able to add just enough lore to keep things from getting stale. The first one introduces us to the entire concept of death coming for people that should have died. The second one introduces us to a new way of cheating death's plans by actually dying for a few minutes and then getting revived. Kimberly, the main character in the second movie, actually did that and is the only surviving main character in the franchise. The third one showed us the pictures Wendy took, foreshadowing how each character would die, and that intervening does not skip someone on death's list, but just moves them to the back of the list. 4 tells us that everything is actually predetermined and the characters actually were supposed to survive the catastrophe. Yeah, let's not talk about that one. 5 introduces a very interesting idea that you can kill someone else in order to essentially switch places with them, giving death that person instead and taking the time that they would have had left for yourself. Plus, of course, one of the best twists in horror movie history, with it actually being a prequel, revealing it in the best and most chill-inducing way possible. I will never hear Dust in the Wind the same again. And Bloodlines might be the most interesting one yet, adding the rule that if someone survives an incident they weren't supposed to, and then goes on to have offspring, and then they have offspring, so on and so forth. That entire bloodline is on death's list. It only took so long and allowed for these bloodlines to form because Iris, the grandmother of the main character Steph, not only saved herself from a catastrophe, but prevented it altogether, therefore saving hundreds of lives, a very different direction for the franchise. Death can't kill all of these survivors at once, so in this case, it took decades. Each film, aside from 4, a line you will probably hear me say a lot here, maintains the perfect balance between having everything we want in a Final Destination movie and expanding the lore just the right amount. But what about the characters? They're good. Enough. I don't think you need super complex and memorable characters in movies like this. They just need to be likable enough that you like seeing them on screen and somewhat care about what happens to them. Alex and Clear are very solid characters in the first one. Clear even comes back for the second one. Kimberly is solid, as mentioned before. She's, at the very least, memorable for being one of the only characters to survive, along with Thomas Burke in that same movie. Wendy from the third one is my personal favorite character. Love me some Mary Elizabeth Winstead, or as I'll always know her, Gwen Grayson. 4, I mean, Becca from The Boys is alright, I guess. Sam and Molly are cool in 5. Again, considering these movies aren't exactly deep character studies, they get the job done for the most part. And lastly, in the character department, I can't go without mentioning the late, great Tony Todd as William Bloodworth. He had limited screen time, but popped up in multiple movies and stole every single scene he was in. All of those scenes had meaning. He seemed to be more knowledgeable about how death works than anyone else, and drops a bit of lore every time he pops up. His screen presence and gravitas is unmatched, and somehow the most memorable character in the franchise, despite the limited screen time and not even having a name until Bloodlines, which also fully revealed his backstory, which I thought was awesome. He was a kid in the restaurant that should have died, but was saved by Iris in the beginning. It was so great to see him one last time. A perfect send-off for an absolute legend. Rest in peace, King. Of course, we have to talk about the score. What is a good horror movie without memorable music? The late, great Shirley Walker of Batman fame composed the score for the first 3 movies and did a fantastic job capturing the atmosphere, tension, and emotions, elevating all of those vibes. Brian Tyler of Scream 5 and 6 fame took over for the next 2 after Walker's untimely passing. Then Tim Wynn, whom I had never heard of prior, did Bloodlines. All accomplished what they needed to, but added their own flair as well. Guys, Final Destination is about as consistent as a horror franchise could possibly get. The only real competition in my mind when it comes to movies with about as many entries is Scream. And like Scream 3, the 4th Final Destination movie might not be good, but if that's the worst movie in your horror franchise, you're doing pretty well. Freddy's Dead, Halloween Resurrection, Jason Goes to Hell, anyone? The Final Destination looks like Citizen Kane compared to those. The Final Destination movies have a very simple but extremely effective and compelling concept, executed to bloody perfection. The atmosphere, the anxiety and tension building make these movies what they are, along with the carnage candy that follows. The characters are mostly good enough, a few stand out more than others, but let's be honest, that's not really what we're here for. We know they're all probably going to die by the end anyway, we just want to see how. Each entry in the franchise, besides 4, delivers on the thrills and kills we all want out of a Final Destination movie, but it has yet to get stale because the lore continues to expand. Bloodlines probably doing that even better than any other movie in the franchise. The films are endlessly rewatchable, there are no signs of slowing down, and I imagine there will be an announcement of another installment coming soon, and you know I will be there opening night. But the question is, what do you think of Final Destination? Is it also one of your favorite horror franchises? Drop your thoughts in a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Likes are so important for growing my channel. If you want to see more of this kind of content, horror, action, superheroes, animation, sci-fi, all the fun stuff, subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified when I post a video. Check out my Patreon for further benefits. Stay tuned for some more fun content, and I will see you soon.